Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a moment in every woman's life when the silence within her begins to roar louder than the world around her. A moment when conformity cracks, and something ancient, wild, and divine stirs from beneath the layers she was told to wear. This is not rebellion. It is revelation. It is the emergence of the fearless, the female, the free. She does not run from her fear, nor does she deny the trembling that lives within her bones. Instead, she walks straight into it, with eyes open, not out of recklessness, but out of an ancient knowing that the only way out is through. The darkness she enters is not merely the absence of light. It is the presence of all that has been forgotten, suppressed, or rejected. It is the place where her wounds hide, dressed as silence, where old betrayals linger like ghosts, where her unlived dreams weep behind locked doors, and yet she steps into this place not as a victim, but as a seeker. In that descent, she discovers that what she feared most was never the darkness itself, but her own reflection within it. The rage she denied, the grief she numbed, the voice she silenced, they all greet her here. And instead of turning away, she listens. She listens to the language of pain, of memory, of unmet need. She learns that fear was never her enemy, it was her exiled teacher. That shame was never her truth, it was a borrowed cloak. And as she accepts the parts of herself she was taught to fear, something miraculous happens. The shadows begin to shift. They no longer threaten, they transform. They reveal hidden strengths, intuitive powers, primal instincts she forgot she possessed. She realizes the light she was chasing has always lived inside her, but it could only be born in the cradle of the dark. This is not a fairy tale resurrection. It is a raw, sacred confrontation. And in choosing to face herself fully, she reclaims not just her light, but her life. She was never meant to be what the world demanded of her. From the beginning, hands reached out to shape her into something smaller, softer, safer. Expectations draped over her shoulders like heavy garments. Be quiet, be agreeable, be beautiful, be less. Each label, each rule, each whispered should, was a brick in the mold they built around her. But there came a time when the pressure to remain contained became more painful than the fear of breaking free. She began to sense that the mold was never crafted for her growth. It was built to restrain her becoming. It demanded that she sever pieces of herself to fit into spaces that could never hold her truth. So instead of shattering under its weight, she shattered the mold itself. With every boundary she questioned, every rule she challenged, and every no she declared, cracks began to form in the structure that confined her. This breaking was not without cost. She was called difficult, rebellious, too much. But these were just names spoken by those who had forgotten how to live outside the cage. She did not break herself to please them. She refused to bend until she disappeared. She chose wholeness over approval, wildness over perfection, truth over comfort. And in breaking the mold, she didn't become someone new. She returned to someone ancient within her, the original blueprint. The self that existed before the world told her who to be. She began to walk with her spine straight and her voice steady, not because she had something to prove, but because she had finally remembered she had nothing to hide. She wears no masks now. Her laughter is real, her rage is sacred, her love is intentional. She no longer seeks to fit in, because she was born to stand out, not in defiance, but in devotion to her deepest self. What she broke was not a rebellion, it was a resurrection, and now, in the open air beyond the mold, she breathes fully for the first time. In a world saturated with noise, where every platform screams for attention, where everyone has something to say, and where silence is mistaken for weakness, she chooses something radical. She listens. But not to the endless external chatter, not to the endless scroll of opinions, trends, or expectations. She turns inward. She tunes herself to a frequency deeper than logic, quieter than words. Beneath the surface of daily demands, she finds a whisper, soft but steady, ancient yet alive. It is the voice that does not shout but knows. This voice is not always easy to hear. It does not speak the language of urgency, nor does it offer instant clarity. It waits, it watches, it speaks in symbols, in subtle feelings, in dreams that linger long after waking. And she learns, slowly, to discern its tone from the voices of fear, shame, or inherited belief. She learns to trust what cannot always be explained. At first, this inner voice feels unfamiliar, like a stranger at the door. But as she listens more, she realizes it has been with her all along, patient, faithful, waiting for her return. This voice does not demand that she be anyone but herself. It does not flatter her ego, nor does it punish her mistakes. It simply calls her back to her own intuition, her own knowing, her own sacred path. And the more she listens, the more the outer world loses its grip. She no longer feels the need to be louder than others, because she's not trying to compete, she's trying to align. She doesn't rush decisions or chase validation, because this voice within gives her a different kind of guidance, one that emerges from her depths, not her fears. It doesn't lead her where others are going. It leads her where she is meant to go. She stops asking, "What should I do?" and starts asking, "What is true for me?" And when the noise of the world becomes overwhelming, she knows how to return to that quiet place within where wisdom dwells. There, in that stillness, she finds the compass that never points wrong. This is how she becomes sovereign, not by silencing the world, but by refusing to let it drown out the voice that has always been hers. The voice beneath the noise is not just guidance, it is her essence speaking, and by listening, she does more than find direction. She finds herself. She understands that true power is not loud. It does not need to scream, dominate, or crush. Power, in its highest form, is presence. It is the unshakable stillness at the center of the storm. But she also knows that presence without heart becomes tyranny, so she chooses a different path. She becomes the rare and radiant fusion of strength and softness, where power is not a weapon, but a vessel for compassion, and compassion is not a weakness, but a courageous act of inner alignment. She has been through enough to know that power gained at the cost of others is merely control. She has seen the hollow victories of those who climb by stepping over others, and she has felt the burn of being dismissed, overlooked, or silenced. And so, her power rises not from ego, but from empathy. It is shaped by the fire of her wounds, and softened by the tears she never apologized for. She carries the authority of someone who has touched her own depths, and refuses to abandon others in theirs. When she speaks, people listen, not out of fear but out of respect. Her words carry weight not because they are loud but because they are rooted in truth. She does not manipulate, she does not demand. She inspires, she elevates, she sees others clearly, even in their brokenness, and meets them not with judgment, but with the fierce grace of someone who remembers what it means to be lost and found again. Her boundaries are clear, not cruel. She does not tolerate disrespect, but she does not mirror it either. She knows how to say no with love, how to walk away with dignity, how to protect her energy without building walls of bitterness. Her compassion is not self-sacrifice, it is discernment. It knows when to give and when to step back. It knows that healing is not always gentle, and sometimes the most compassionate act is to hold someone accountable for their own growth. She walks through the world not trying to prove her worth, but to embody it, not to be feared, but to be felt. She leaves a trail of safety wherever she goes, not because she makes people comfortable, but because she makes them real. And those who stand in her presence often find themselves seeing the world, and themselves, with new eyes. This union of power and compassion within her is no accident. It is the result of deep inner work, of battles fought in silence, of choosing to remain open even after being hurt. She did not stumble upon this grace. She forged it, alchemized it, and now wears it like a second skin. She is a force, but not a storm. She is the mountain, steady, sacred, and strong. And at her feet, the waters of compassion flow. She does not set out to awaken others. She simply chooses to awaken herself, and in doing so, she becomes a mirror. Without preaching, without performing, without seeking attention, her very presence begins to stir something dormant in the hearts of those around her. People look at her and see something both familiar and forgotten. It's not envy she evokes, it's recognition, a solstice, all remembering. She walks into a room and others sense a quiet permission to be more of themselves. To stop hiding, to stop pretending, to breathe deeper. She doesn't need to declare her journey, she embodies it. Her authenticity disrupts the performance of others. Her depth invites honesty. Her refusal to shrink gives others the courage to take up space. And it's not because she is perfect or always confident or untouched by pain. It's because she carries her wounds with dignity, her fears with tenderness, and her truth with unwavering devotion. When she laughs, it's whole. When she grieves, it's real. When she loves, it's sacred. And in that rawness, others begin to feel safe. Not because she promises them comfort, but because she offers them reflection. They see in her what is possible when one chooses self, trust over conformity, inner alignment over external approval. She reminds them that freedom is not out there, it is within. Some may resist her. Some may project their unhealed parts onto her. That too is part of her role. She does not need to be liked to be transformative. The mirror does not bend to please the viewer. It simply reflects what is, and sometimes what is not yet owned. Her very existence calls forth the buried, the silenced, the sacred in others. And while she cannot do the work for them, she becomes a symbol of what it looks like when someone chooses to live from their center rather than their fear. This is the true power of awakening. It ripples. Without forcing, without convincing, she lights a path simply by walking hers. And those who are ready will feel it, not as pressure, but as invitation. Not as demand, but as inspiration. She becomes the kind of woman who shifts atmospheres, not by what she says, but by who she is. She does not seek followers, she summons leaders, the kind who lead themselves back home. She is not a savior, but a signal, a quiet revolution disguised as a single soul fully alive.